This is a really big patch for Bazaar, and it's coming tomorrow, so that is pretty exciting. I was privy to a few of the details in it, especially the bug fixes, because it's a lot of stuff that I've reported throughout my gameplay. But let's have a look. All right, it's patch notes time. There are a lot of changes coming. And again, I am privy a little bit to some of the things here and a lot of the bug fixes. It's going to be a lot of changes in the Bazaar. A lot. It's going to feel in many ways like a very different way to play the game, because probably in many ways it will be very different to play the game. I think they are pretty bold in making these significant of changes in their game, but you know, on the other hand, I do respect the boldness. So general patch goals, they do these kinds of things, and I think it's pretty important because in the past, one of their goals that they outlined is that they want every run to feel like a whole new experience, like roguelike and stuff. And that was not really happening. A lot of time people were forcing builds pretty, not like all the time, but certainly more regularly than I would like to see, and probably the same is what they had. So their general patch goals: smooth out early game variants. That's really big. You just auto win at the start with a powerful skill item combo. Increase meta diversity by reducing the impact power of early game upgrades and persistent item scaling, particularly out of combat scaling. Okay. Reduce the number of hidden rules in the way the game provides content. I don't know what that means. Slow down the pace of combat in the end game. This is really big. Reduce the prevalence power of instant infinite loops. A huge part of this is bypassing internal cooldowns, so hopefully that is part of the changes. Adding active effects to some items that currently are passive only. I don't know what that means. Many of these initiatives are ongoing, so expect more in these areas in future patches. Freeze kill it. New content: Monster Ranch encounter that provides monster loot items. So monster loot items are really, really strong. We've often had the level up option. If you have a friend, you get 4 monster loot items. If you don't, you get 2. Even the 2 is usually pretty good. So now there's going to be an encounter to get those. Start of run is now a selection of 4 items. Start of run no longer provides a skill. This is huge. This is huge. We don't really know what tier of items. We don't really know how curated they are. In the past, they were pretty heavily curated. You couldn't get like any item of a certain tier, right? So I guess we'll have to log in tomorrow. But this is going to be a really big change, because before you started with a gold skill, and you wouldn't even really get a gold skill off a regular skill vendor until very rarely on day 5, but typically day 6 or 7. So the gold skill basically kind of set you on track on what you were supposed to do in your run, which I think is a decent idea in general. But the problem with it is that, yeah, on one hand, they're really powerful. There's varying power levels. Like if you started with leftmost item plus 8 burn, that's ridiculous. You just don't lose, right? For like the first 3 days, you almost don't lose to anything other than that. So it looks like Dooley starts with 3 items and a core. It's pretty interesting because at level 1 you can't even use 4 items a lot of the time. This is just going to be so different. I don't know what this is going to be like, but I know for sure the runs will feel way different. I don't know when the anchor points to a build will come up now. I don't know. Maybe one of the 4 items is like gold. Maybe they're all silver, so maybe you actually get a bit of a direction at the start. I don't know. Encounter frames have been given a facelift. It's cosmetics. Many items' base outputs have been changed slightly to have more consistent scaling. So some of the ridiculous scalers are like the ammo weapons. Oh, a selection of 4 items. They don't say a selection of 1 of 4 items. No. Is it? Oh. I thought it was you get 4 items. Oh, so they just axe the skill. Oh, okay. 1 of 4. Okay. Interesting. Same thing, though. We don't know the grade. If it's just silver items, that would make it so you're not really that set in your run. And if it's just one silver item, the monsters in the first few days are going to be really challenging. They're going to be really challenging. It's like those cursed runs where you start and with like a burn skill and you don't get a burn item until day 4. All of them are going to be like that. Okay. So the big scalers, some of them that were kind of out of whack were the ammo items. The ammo items would just gain so much damage when you would upgrade them that it kind of made ammo items way too broken. I don't know what this is targeting, but I would guess probably that, maybe something else. Enchantments with passive effects now have tooltips describing their effect. So you kind of had to guess before. It didn't say on the item. When it was in the vendor, that is. I think that's what that's addressing. Rerolls removed from many specialized merchants. This is huge. You could basically use this feature of force builds nonstop. So that is dead. Like even the large vendor, the way that I believe the vendors worked, like if you got the large vendor on day 2, yes, there's only 7 large items for Vanessa, right? But it wasn't random on the first page. The first page almost always had the ones that show up as bronze. And the reroll was the one that forced the silver options. So this is way more significant than you think. This will mean that the chance that you get port on day 2 is pretty much 0. I don't think it's actually 0, but I think it's pretty much 0. Because the large vendor is not 3 out of 7 on the first screen. It is not. It'll prioritize the bronze ones if it's day 2, because the chance to get a bronze item on day 2 is way higher than a silver item. It's not 0 because you can get port from the silver vendor on day 1. I've gotten port on day 1 before. It's very close to 0 though. Level up to 5 is no longer an upgrade, but tier restricted upgrades have been added to all level ups. So tier restricted probably means like upgrade a bronze item to silver or something like that. Again, we'll have to see. I do think the guaranteed upgrade on 5 was not good for the game. And I did give them net feedback, and it looks like they agreed. So that's very good to see. It was too easy to force builds. You'd get like a silver weights, which is like every single run with pig, and you'd always get diamond weights by level 11, which is not good for the game. Dramatically increase the floor tick rate of Sandstorm to accelerate end of combat. So the floor tick rate. So probably it doesn't start at 1 damage. Probably it starts at more. They say dramatically, so probably a lot more. I don't know. Generally, that's also good, I would say. Generally, it's also good. And I think this change favors Dooley, because Dooley was typically the hero to outscale the Sandstorm significantly. Pig would usually kind of start to get in there while it's happening, and Vanessa doesn't have many builds to outscale it. So this is kind of a Dooley buff, I would say. Reduce XP gains from a variety of encounter options. Generally, that's good, but if the guaranteed enchantment choose 3 at level 16 is like out of reach, that's bad, because that's kind of like a really big key point in our run, in my opinion. So we'll see how that works out. Veteran Octopus now correctly has multicast 2. Oh, the cutlasses. Tiny cutlasses, multi 2. That's a pretty decent item then, because I think it's speed 5, so I'd put it as effective speed 2.5 on a small item. That's a good item now. Arrow no longer spawns for Vanessa, so Vanessa has 4 vehicles total. So this is a good change, because that is kind of dumb for consistency. Zara's the haste charge trainer no longer spawns for Pygmalion. So this is a nerf to weights. Get wrecked. Paul no longer spawns on day 3 and 4. I'm pretty sure he could spawn on day 2. Can he still spawn on day 2? That might just be like a typo in the patch notes. Yeah, I've had him on day 2. I would guess that this is a typo in the patch notes. I think what they mean to say is that he can't spawn after. He can't spawn until day 5. I think that's what they mean to say. And on day 5, he can have gold items. So even if you... Like, we don't know if he's affected by the reroll We don't know if he's a highly specialized one. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. I think he is. Large, I think, is specialized, but I don't know. But it does mean that on day 5, you can get gold large items. The large item pool is reasonably vast at that point, I would say. The tool merchant no longer spawns day 2 and is slightly rarer. 2 and 3 and slightly rare. This is a good change. He's very, very specialized. I hope that his reroll is gone. Reduce the rate that Seraphina, the enchanted item merchant, will sell icy items. That is good. Icy items are really busted. You certainly shouldn't have more than one of them in any run. And we have had those. Pyro now has the fiery skill. I don't know what that is, but Pyro was like beyond free. Like super, super easy. I imagine that if they give him a skill, he could still be free. Burn items plus burn, yeah. Warrior adjusted. So you might think it's like, people complain. No, we don't have starting skills anymore. Warrior is a day 2 encounter. That is completely ridiculous. So I think now that we don't have starting skills, Warrior might just be like actually impossible. He might actually be impossible. So this was probably needed. Added enchantment options to the following items: bees, piggles, citrus, coconut, medkit, pelt, gumballs, bag of jewels. Bag of jewels drops off of the turtle. It sells for 12 gold. What the hell enchantments can they get? Spare change. Snowflake. The wings. Nanobots is kind of big. It might actually make them viable. Nanobots, you get 3 of them when you buy like the nanobot minion haste dude. I would guess that if he is enchanted and you buy him, you get 3 enchanted nanobots, which I think actually makes that viable. Right now, the power level is too low to really be competitive. So this one is probably the most significant one, nanobots. Sparring partner no longer spawns a monster, but is now considered a regular encounter, although it's still combat. I don't know what that means. So Teddy was a rare item you could get if you would raid the vault in the Thieves Guild. I've only seen it once and it looked kind of like a crappy item. Crit scaling effect now triggers when your shield takes damage. I'm not sure about that. I've never actually seen an opponent with this item, so we'll see. Meditation level up now gives 1 experience instead of 2. I would pick this as a level up option a huge amount of the time, so that's probably a good change. But again, I think if the level 16 guaranteed enchantment is out of reach now, that's not good. So we'll see how that works out, because it's a combination of things, right? Coolant leak now 5 times instead of 10. It's still going to be about as strong, honestly. Stoutfire skill is now when you burn, gain regen and increase the damage of your weapons. When you gain burn. Oh, so when you are burned. You buff your weapons and gain regen. Interesting. Arms dealer. So arms dealer's back. When you sell a weapon, gain health. No longer triggers on buy. So it is, I would say, 40% nerf. It's not nerfed by 50% because there's a lot of ways to generate items. So if you generate an item, you still get the sell effect, like the busy bees. Yeah, and not being able to start with it is obviously a big deal. Augmented weaponry. Your weapons have +1 damage when you sell a small item. Increase this bonus by 1, 2, 3, 4. Your weapons. Wow, this is crazy. This is crazy. This is like absurdly broken. If this is a skill Vanessa can get right now, I believe it's a pig skill or it's a monster skill. I'm not sure. But if Vanessa can get this skill, this is the strongest weapon scaler in the game. I think right now it's only a monster skill. So if it stays a monster skill, I think it's fine. But it's still really, really strong now. Augmented defenses. It's again a monster skill. Your items have +1 shield when you smell a small item. Increase. This one's less powerful because with weapons are much more proactive. Shield is much more reactive. So this one is still really good, but it's still worse than this one. Knife set. Increased damage and charges on weapon use, but no longer deals damage on use. This is a good thing. Damage on use, those things are just kind of really, they get out of control too fast. Vial of Blood starts at silver, giving 1, 2, 3 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. So you'll still get it, but you probably won't get it early on from Monster Loot, basically, is what that means. The Monster Loot option is curated based on the day. So if you choose Monster Loot on day 1, your chance to get Vial of Blood is 0. You cannot get it. And if you choose it on day 2, it should be really low chance. Oh, and it won't be on Curio anymore. That's interesting. Okay, yeah. That is actually a Curio nerf. That's a good point, chat. Defensive stance is now when you use a weapon, give your shield items 3, 6, 9 shield for the fight. That's still quite good, and it has a lower threshold. Still quite good. Lifting, your weapons have +1 damage. When you buy a weapon, increase this bonus by 1, 2, 3. So lifting previously only buffed the weapons on your rug. It didn't even work on your stash. So this is a lot less, but it works on your future weapons and it works on your stash now. So that sounds pretty decent to me. Also, it was really busted before if you got it early. So I think this is pretty good. Lord Arkan has commissioned upgrades to the Eclipse. The Eclipse is his signature item. And now deals 100 damage on item use and has first time you fall below half health, use this. So he will probably be quite strong. He's already pretty tough. The first encounter or two with Lord Arkan, you may need to skip it. Magic Carpet is now a vehicle. Okay. Magic Carpet has like some when you crit with another item scale this damage or something. It's not a very good item. Now that it's a vehicle, it probably doesn't change anything. It's probably just future-proofing, because I believe it is a mock item. Electrified Hull skill is now first 5 times you shield each fight, charge an item 1, 2. That's quite strong. That's really strong, actually. Sabotage the first 5 times you use a tool, slow a random item for 1, 2 seconds. What? The first 5 times you use a tool, slow a random item for 2 seconds at diamond. Don't get this skill, guys. This skill is complete dumpster. Do not spend gold and get this skill. It's terrible. Unless they have a typo here. It's really bad. 5 slows for 2 seconds for a 24 gold diamond skill. Jesus Christ. That's awful. Alright. Feather is now, when you sell this, reduce your item cooldowns by 2, 4, 6, 8. I believe before it was 3, 6, 9, 12. So small nerf on that. Sharp Corners is now, when you shield, give your weapons 3, 6, 9. But it's now at silver tier. Before it was 20 and 30. 20 was absurdly broken. I think 9 is still absurdly broken. This sounds about right, honestly. This sounds about right. That might be a pretty well adjusted change there. Boiler and Brawler no longer has hammer and wrench due to bugs, temporarily replaced by orbital polisher and goggles. Well, Boiler Room Brawler, it's been good. I will not visit you anymore. See you later. But, I mean, they might bring them back, I guess. Disabled item, no more Life Preserver and Luxury Tents. Life Preserver was the strongest starting item on Vanessa. And now, because you don't start with a skill, that's very much a Vanessa nerf, I would say. Deborah remains disabled pending redesign. That's the XP for 2 XP for 5 gold vendor. Schematics, bootstraps, hammer, and wrench disabled due to bugs. So these were not working in the last update. Not in this update. In the last update for the last like 2 weeks, they were not working. If you had them enchanted, they would say that they would also apply their enchantment to their upgrade target, and they weren't doing that. However, there was one more. Schematics, bootstraps, hammer, and wrench. Also, scrap worked that way. So if scrap is not disabled, you should probably expect scrap to be bugged. So, you know, with caution, enchant your scrap. Scrap is the dually medium item. When you sell this, upgrade the core. If you enchant that, it transfers its enchantment to your core. Why would you want to do that instead of enchanting your core? That's a good question. It's because you can have 2 cores and enchant them both if you use both cores. The combat core is a second core. So that is a very relevant mechanic, and I would caution you against doing that in this update. Other items previously disabled have been returned. We are only 25% of the way through. Ballista no longer triggers its own multicast scaling. Ah, come on. Honestly, this probably doesn't matter very much. But it was fun to see, like an X200. Come on, bro. Why not? Why not? What's the problem? I want to see a big number. Cutlass multicast 2. Cutlass is the small weapon, the one that the octopus has, right? Or is it the medium one? Oh, maybe it's the medium one actually. What's the medium one called? The medium double crit? Okay. Oh, it's actually a pretty good item then. Okay, we can do a one-weapon cutlass build now. Clamor is no longer a tool. This is actually a nerf to the flagship build, but the flagship build was overperforming. Is by far the best weapon for a one-weapon build. Repeater change. When you use another item with ammo, charge this 3 seconds. So from my experience, these charge this. This itself often has an internal cooldown, so it might make it way slower for throwing knives. Throwing knives passive change. When you crit, charge this 1 second. Cooldown has been reduced from 3 seconds to 2 seconds. Wow, 2-second throwing knives. Bro, that is scary. 2-second throwing knives means with holster, it'll trigger 1 second to the fight. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously they were going to nerf the infinity damage garbage anyway, but throwing knives is like, in some builds, it's actually stronger now. 3 to 2 seconds is insane. This is an insane weapon. Yeah. Captain's wheel previously changed. When you use a vehicle or large item, charges 2 seconds. Okay. So it used to just get used. This is still fine. It's pretty much the same thing. Pufferfish now poisons 3, 6, 9, 12 on a 6-second cooldown, and the passive is changed. When you haste, charge this 3 seconds. I think Pufferfish is probably a little bit stronger in most cases, but because you don't start with a gold tier poison skill, it's going to feel way weaker. Like, I'm not comparing this Pufferfish to the current one, because the current ones, if you played Pufferfish but didn't have a poison starting skill, it's trash. It's absolute garbage. It's like 1 poison damage. No, the poison damage is now relevant. You can't compare it with the skill. I'm saying without the skill, it's about the same. And now you can freeze it. Oh, that's true. Now you can freeze it. That's true. Alacrity now charges 1 to 2 instead of 2 to 3. That's in line with the other new skills that they made. Jellyfish now gains haste when adjacent aquatic item is used instead of any aquatic item. I mean, jellyfish is kind of bad. You only really use it for pufferfish. This might be an unjustified nerf, honestly, but okay. I don't mind it. I don't like pufferfish. Inexorable, your items +2 crit when you start a fight. So it used to be bronze, I believe. I think they just moved everything a tier, basically. Still very good. Port reloads 1 ammo at all tiers and spawns mostly Vanessa items at 1 tier lower than itself. Oof. Oof. Port is dead. A lot of people, they kind of get wrecked if they have like a silver port, so they don't really know, but I've played port a lot at silver. Only reloading 1 ammo is kind of a big deal, because a lot of the small ammo items have really fast cooldowns. Like the dagger has a cooldown of 2. The port has a cooldown of 6, right? So this means that your ammo items will run out of ammo. The second part might not actually be the biggest nerf. So it's definitely nerfed. I think it might still be viable though. Trebuchets now deal Giga Dam, Giga Burn. When you use a weapon or haste, charge this 1 second. It's kind of hard to wrap my mind around that. But that does mean that Vanessa has fewer tools for haste in general. So overall, I think this will be a Vanessa nerf. But the item itself might still be pretty good. Pearl now shields on a 5-second cooldown. And the passive is changed when you use another aquatic item, charges 1 second. Well, Pearl was passive only, and it was awful. And now it's active, and seems to me like it's still pretty bad. I I still would not really consider using this item. Fishing rod now hastes the aquatic item to the right. This is a buff. This means that you can use fishing rod in combo with catfish. And probably you should be able to use it for a pretty good portion of the game now. This is good. Fishing rod is a pretty good item anyway. You like stashed it. Now you can just put it on your rug. It's actually a double buff if you had space problems. I like that change a lot. Lighthouse now burns 12 and 20 on a 6-second cooldown, and the passive is changed when you slow charge this 3 seconds. That is probably good enough to see play. I think Lighthouse might be viable now. Just the base values are just really high. Lighthouse is like burn 3 or something, some just horrendously tiny amount, and it was a passive item which had other issues, and because it wasn't an active item, it couldn't crit. So now it's active, which means it can crit. It has a way larger base value, so you can actually like change your build into that in like a realistic way. Water Wheel now hastes your other items on a 6-second cooldown. Passive changed when using an adjacent item, charge this 3 seconds. So I think that's a buff. It used to be charge 1 second, right? Or haste this 1 second. Oh, it used to be haste this 1 second. This is a massive buff if you can benefit from using the item. But it's a nerf if you were just stacking haste triggers. So it's a pufferfish nerf, but it's a buff for everything else. And considering we lost Trebuchet, like Water Wheel is just really good with Weather Glass, right? Like you put like a 4 or even a 3 multi Weather Glass, and every time Weather Glass is used, all of your items gain haste now. Yeah, so Water Wheel is buffed for almost all use cases. Pretty good. I never really used this item. I thought this item was kind of bad, but also I didn't play Pufferfish, and in Pufferfish it's good, so that's why I never really used it. But now I think I'll start using it. Heated Shells now starts at silver and is when you use an ammo item, burn 2, 3, 4. It was a usable one before, but they nerfed port, so it's hard to say. Astrolabe is now shield, so it starts at silver, and I think the shield value is doubled. When you use another non-weapon item, haste it. So the haste is the same. So it no longer hastes itself also. That's the change. And they doubled the shield value. In most builds, Astrolabe will actually be stronger. Which again is very good, because struggling for haste for some builds without Trebuchet. Iron Sharpens Iron, now leftmost +2. When you buy a weapon, increases bonus by 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow. That's a huge amount of damage. I think one weapon builds are actually stronger. This is a huge amount of damage. And you can change your weapon. It's not locked in on your weapon. It's a huge amount of damage. Flurry of Blows is now the first 5 times you'd use a weapon each fight, charge an item 1 to 2 seconds. Which one was this? Was this the weapon hastes another weapon? Because if it is, that's a nerf. Okay, that's a nerf then. So the previous version of the skill was when you use a weapon, haste a different weapon. And the reason that was good is because you could just use 10 weapons or 9 weapons. But now it'll be way harder to actually gain haste in a full weapon board. So that's a nerf. The 10 weapon builds were primarily good at killing the opponent in like 2 seconds before any of their items went off. So I'm pretty happy to see this nerfed. But yes, it is a nerf. Bullet time, now the first 5 times use ammo item, slow a random item. Man, they're nerfing slow so badly. Slow might be like really premium. Alright, Pig. Beast of Burden. Giga buffed base damage. Scaling is 50% less. Honestly, it's still pretty good. My main issue with Beast of Burden is because the main issue I had was I would buy it and not have enough time to scale it to actually use it. So now the scaling is worse, but the base damage is pretty good. I don't know. It might not be so bad. Regal Blade actually gains damage with tears, and the scaling is halved. So kind of the same thing. Regal Blade was like crazy. One of the most broken items in the entire game. So that is a very good change for Regal Blade. Open for business skill now counts properties in stash. I think this is for every property you gain 1 income. I actually didn't realize it wasn't working with the stash, so good to know. Cash register now spawns 2 instead of 3. Good change. Yo-yo charges itself, so there's no bronze yo-yo anymore. Silver, gold, diamond. 2 seconds when an adjacent item is used instead of force use. Now deals 1, 5, 10, 20 damage. Damage doesn't matter. Cooldown reduced from 8 seconds to 6. It's way nerfed, but honestly, this is still an insanely strong item. Loop and Billboard now give items bonus value at the start of each day instead of passive. This is very good. Obviously, it's a nerf, but like I would very often play Pig and have no econ issues without either item. So they're still really good. The thing that really changes is the tediousness. So now when you get like Loop, you won't just buy and sell every single small item on every single shop, which in my opinion is good because it is a bit tedious. That's a big nerf. It is a big nerf, but it's good for the game. Yeah, it's not even glass half full. Like I getting an early Loop, sometimes I dreaded that. Like before when Loop was silver, it's like, oh, I guess for the next 40 minutes I'm buying and selling every single small item. No more 100k HP? No, there's still going to be 100k HP. Vineyard now heals on a 6-second cooldown and charges itself on item use. Okay, good riddance. Landscraper, same thing. It's a lot easier to scale shields, so Landscraper is probably better than Vineyard now. Beehive now charges all busy bees on enemy weapon use. So busy bees has an 8-second cooldown. So if your opponent uses 4 weapons, all of your busy bees will trigger. Honestly, that's pretty good if you're actually using a lot of bees. So this is going to be a new build. I see this as viable, but it's not going to look like it did before. Bushel passive is changed when you shield charge this 2 seconds. No longer gives shielding on heal. That's a nerf. Oh my goodness, that's a big nerf. Bushel was also one of the strongest enchantment targets in the entire game because it replicated its effect on heal trigger. So Bushel is ripping pepperonis. I would say that Bushel might still be pretty good, but I think because of this nerf and the likely enchantment changes to follow, that Bushel's no longer an endgame item. Marbles now slows one item 1, 2, 3, 4 on a 3-second cooldown, and passive is changed when you use an adjacent item, charge this 1 second. No longer slows on adjacent item use. So a 3-second cooldown. What? It charges 4 at diamond, but it has a 3-second cooldown? Huh? Are you sure? So if I have bonk, it's still... Oh, the slow is 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, I had it backwards. Okay. So the charge 1 never changes, and the 3-second cooldown never changes. So it's used 3 adjacent for 1 slow. Okay. It looks like they're nerfing slow across the board, and slow is a really powerful mechanic. Okay, for a comparison, they're nerfing the slow skills way more than this. Way more. So this might actually still be insanely strong. Pygmalion has almost no slow items. This is like it. Shipment spawns mostly Pygmalion items at 1 tier lower than itself. Well, probably not buying that anymore. Kukri now deals 5 to 40 when you heal 3, 6, 9, 12. I think it used to give 20 at diamond. So that with the Vineyard nerf, Kukri is probably real bad. Crook now buffs medium items only, dealing and buffing 40. Crook is still really good. Just won't use yo-yo anymore. Oh, it was 30 at diamond. Oh, wow. I mean, golf clubs aren't changed, so now golf clubs is just like eclipsing Kukri. Endurance skill is now when you use a weapon and give your healing items 10, 20, 30 healing for the fight. That's insanely strong. At the start of each day, your items 1 to 2 value on the trader skill. The trader skill was really strong. This is still really strong. Makeshift plate, your items have +1 shield for every 4, 3, 2 gold that you have. Now, I think this is the same, but it's just harder to have a crazy amount of overcapped gold effectively. So I guess it's nerfed overall. Overall, it feels like Crook, possibly Bees, and Golf Clubs are going to be standout builds for Pig. It's definitely a huge change for playing Pig. Huge change. Dooley, Bunker now only triggers off item damage, no longer off Sandstorm, Poison, or Burn. Good. This is stupid as hell. Machine Learning now costs 6 golds at all tiers. I believe this is the upgrade your core. This was disabled in the last 2 weeks. It used to cost 24 gold when, like after day 9 or something, 24 gold, and it still did the same thing as the 6 gold version, so it was really dumb. So I'm really glad they actually made this change. Capacitor now starts at silver tier, 7, 6, 5 second cooldown from 10, 9, 8, 7. So this item reduces the cooldown of adjacents by 1 charge. It was unusably bad before, and I did let them know, so I'm happy that they're addressing it. A diamond version would be 5 second, reduce adjacent cooldowns by 1 second. That's still about as good as thrusters, but thrusters are usable. And you won't have the self-burn, which is actually a problem for some builds. So this is pretty good. Pretty good item now. Not crazy, but I think it's usable. Armadillo is back. Damage on use now. And the passive is when you shield charge. Cooldown is from 8 to 6 seconds. I mean, 160 damage through shield at 6 seconds. This is a good item. Like, it's just a good item now. They're obviously nerfing the absurd combo, but they didn't nerf the item into the ground. It's just like a good item. Like, if you get a diamond armadillo, you'll just like stick it in your build a lot of the time. Arc Blaster now deals 160 Arc Blaster. Wow. When you use the core, charge this 4 seconds. Is that the large item that no one uses? Or is that the laser cannon? What the hell is an Arc Blaster? The fact that I don't know this is kind of shocking, because I have played Dooley a lot. Yeah, I'm looking it up on the website and I can't find it. I don't know what it is. I actually don't know what it is. I think it's either a new item or it was something disabled before. I don't know what this item is. Sounds good because core charging an item can be really strong. Bomb Squad, so this is the friend that is burning damage, and it's the first one you get. It's at bronze, and it gets haste when using adjacent. Now it's when using adjacent charge, it no longer hastes items. That's crazy. Charge 2 on adjacent friend use was the reason why Walter Cooler was broken at diamond. So if I can get that effect at bronze, it's like crazy for like cooldown spam. Flamethrower was obscene when you got it working. Honestly, if you can get a flamethrower working at 2, it's still obscene. I don't think that changes anything. Ice 3000, its cooldown was just too long. It had 8 second cooldown. Poisons and freeze on use. It also buffs its own poison when you freeze, but no longer poisons on freeze. Sounds like it's still pretty bad. Burning Shield, the first time you fall below half health each fight, shield equal to double the total burn of your items. That sounds terrible. Now burns both players 5, 10, 15, 20 up from 2, 4, 6, 8 and hastes adjacent items with an 8 second cooldown. It now also reduces the cooldown of adjacent vehicles. Fuel Rod. Sounds like it's usable. First Aiden now starts at bronze. Healing for 10, 20, so way higher healing. Haste another item on a 3 second cooldown, but no longer heals on haste. No longer heals on haste. Oof. Oof. Rip number 1 enchantment target for Dooley. Race Carl now starts at bronze. Deals pretty good damage. Changed to when you haste charge. It used to be it deals damage when you haste. So that is also a rip, but the damage is higher. Honestly, I probably still won't use it. Induction Aegis now starts at bronze tier and burns 1, 2, 4, 5 shields and no longer slows adjacent. Shield 40, burn 5. It's a 4 second cooldown item. Pretty weak item, but a 4-second small item will always have some potential to be used, honestly. Tesla Coil now starts at bronze. Damage 10, 20, 40, 80. 5-second cooldown. When using an adjacent item, charge this 2 seconds. Before, it was just deal damage. It was like a passive damage effect. So now it can crit. And it's a 5-second cooldown with charge. This is actually kind of insane. Like, if you look at like one of these items, it's like, oh, they nerfed it. And then they did the same kind of effect to another one. It's like, oh, they nerfed it. But then, like, okay, so what if I use that and like a capacitor and what is it? The bomb squad. So I use the friend core near the bomb squad, and I put the friend core next to the Tesla coil, and like everything is charging everything. Like, if you have a lot of these effects, they can like cascade like crazy, is what I'm trying to say. So the more items they change to do this, the more I'm starting to think that it's not actually nerfed. It's just made to work differently. Like, in a vacuum, this is a nerf. In context of the other changes, kind of looks like a buff. Weak point detector self-charge now 2 seconds at all tiers. Good. Cores cooldown from 7 to 6 with minor adjustments to base output scaling. Interesting. That's a big deal. A lot of cores are usable at 6 seconds and not usable at 8. Blast door shields when you take damage from an item, charges 2 seconds, and the first time you fall below half your max health, use this. When you take damage from an item, so like a weapon, I guess it doesn't count burn. It seems a bit weak, but if you have like Giga Shield scaling, it might act as like a cheat death type of thing, so maybe it's okay. Pyrocarbon, Giga Shield, when you gain burn, haste your items for 1 to 2 seconds. That's huge. There are many items for Dually that are self-burn. Many. Chem Snail, active poison on a 6-second cooldown, charges itself on slow. I would say that this is a buff, but it seems like they're lowering the sources of slow, so that, I don't know. The rays now count additional copies of themselves. That makes no difference. Illusion Ray and Shark Ray now count as rays! Okay. Railgun now charges off rays as well, including Illuso Ray and Shark Ray. Sure. Alpha Ray starts at bronze tier. That's pretty good. Beta Ray now charges itself instead of giving itself haste on core ray use. Oh! Oh my god. The Beta Ray was the best ray. That's a buff. That's a big buff. This ray is going to be spamming. Just freeze all their small items. This is like the most broken item on Dually now. This is an absurd buff. If you have like 4 rays on a core, the core is machine gunning, and the other rays are being used constantly, you're literally going to freeze every single small item on the opponent's board. This is actually insane. This is pretty gross. This might be the strongest item next patch. In a ray build, I just want to point that out. In a ray build, this is maybe the strongest item. So I think ray builds are actually gonna be builds now. Omega Ray now starts at bronze tier. Gamma Ray starts at bronze tier and buffs all poison items. Oh my goodness. They're nerfing the poison items though, right? But that still sounds pretty good. Solar Farm now has a 6-second cooldown down from 8 and gives regeneration. In addition to haste on use, it now charges when you burn instead of having reduced cooldown when you burn. That's a buff. So I just burn like 2 or 3 times and just haste everything I have. That's really good. Bug fixes. Enchantments. Fix the bug where sometimes people would not die. Thank God. That was so stupid. Interactions bypassed. Okay. Hopefully this means dagger and a few skill item combos. They got like almost all of them last patch. Just a few skill item combos and dagger. That's it. Those were the problem ones, really. So hopefully that's the last nail in that coffin. Fix the bug with several enchantment effects not persisting in the stash. I'm not sure what that means. Supplying weapons from the non-weapon vendor. Aerodome, yeah, this was actually a really big deal. I never used this bug, but in the Aerodome, you could roll if you had no gold. It would just like, you just stay at 0 and just keep rolling. And this is pretty dumb because you would basically get like the freeze vendor or the enchant freeze, and then you would just like win. And this was being abused like crazy at high MMR, of course. But it's like not fun to do that either, and it's not fun for your opponents. Just like, yeah. Cog or haste, they already fixed that, I think. Deadly Pixel. So these are specific enchantments. Water does not provide haste to non-aquatic items. Oh, I didn't even know that. Harpoon, so no more tool harpoon. That was definitely a bug. Chrono barrier. Thank you. Jesus Christ. Yeah, it'd permanently brick your items if the ghost you played had chrono barrier. I mean, it still does as a reading of these patch notes, but good thing that's fixed. Crit chance that I can't crit, doesn't really matter. Knee brace? Oh, we're good. Knee brace is good. Not a bug. You guys said I was exploiting. I don't know. I was using game mechanics as I saw them. Knee brace is not changed. Knee brace survives. We have a knee brace video for those guys who don't know. Not an exploit. Not spawning. Yeah, that I thought it was just disabled. That was the one where you level the core as dually the skill I gave you the level up. Pendulum. Apparently Clamorous slowing for 2 seconds at Diamond was a bug. I didn't know this. So at Diamond it just slows for 1? Okay. I mean, it's still pretty good, but that's kind of sad baseline. Like if I see a Diamond Clamor in the shop with only like a day or 2 left, I'm probably not going to buy it now. Alacrity triggered 6 times instead of 5. Oh, I see. Okay. Piggles. Scarf. Tooltip. Companion core was hasting itself. Actually, that's not true. The companion core would charge itself 1 second when it would use itself, effectively making its cooldown 6 instead of 7. But in the next patch, they're literally changing the cooldown from 7 to 6. So it was never hasting itself. I think this is a typo. Ice cubes. Yeah, there's a pretty bad bug with ice cubes. Oh, pulse rifle 4 seconds. Did I miss that? I didn't see pulse rifle. Yeah, I don't think that's a bug. Some items get lower cooldowns when you level them. Oh, there it is. Pulse rifle incorrectly having different cooldowns at silver tier. Oh, okay. Okay. Like Virus goes from 12 to 5, going from silver to gold. And that change was in like one of the early documentations, I believe. So it's not, like that's not a bug. All right, well, there you have it. Patch notes. Wow. That was pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive. Like for them to change this much stuff is pretty impressive. The game is going to feel very different tomorrow.